Hey everyone, we have an exciting third and final part of this three-part contributing to NgRx with the ComponentStore series. So today we will add, so in the first one, just like a quick recap, in the first one we added the lazy initialization, created ComponentStore itself, and also added a way to update the state. So we added the updater and we added the set state things. Let me just share my screen. There you go. All right, awesome. All right, and let me switch to proper project. So okay, so let's say where we are at. And we are source control. Okay, so where are the selectors? So we'll create the new branch right now. So we'll do a check out. We'll do effect. Okay. Before we forget. All right. So let's take a look at what we have in ComponentStore up until this moment. Okay. Awesome. Let me just remind everybody that we're live. All right, so we create the component store itself. We went over how we destroy it and how we initialize it, how we keep the state in the replace object, how we construct it through either provided state or we can do it lazy. We also show how we attach to the lifecycle of components and basically use the NgRx to clean it up. We went over the updater, how we update the state, how we push values into it, and how we handle cases if it's initialized or not, and then how we push that to the state subject. And so the only changes we've done, we actually, after discussion with Tim and Brayden, we decided to make it private, the initialization, because, well, you can already set state as well. You would call initialization. So basically, another one, the helper for the state is a set state. It would either init state or update the state. So the second one was about the selector, all about it. It was a lot of things. We saw how we select things and how we combine different selectors as well. Or we can combine even different observables, because it doesn't matter. The selector returns as observable values. It doesn't return anything else than the usual. So we can combine selectors, or we can combine selectors and observables. Doesn't really matter. And we combine them with the combine latest. And we went over also and found out how we do it in the most performant way with the debounce sync. Alright, so that was done. That was good. That was good. Awesome. So the next thing is for us to finally add the last part of it, which is an effect. An effect is something that can help us run side effects of the component store. So which side effects? Or for example, I had an example in StackBlitz of thing. Get the book, right? So it's you pass an ID and say get the book, and again the StackBlitz is not happy with us today. Yeah, StackBlitz is not happy with us today as well. For some reason when I do the whole broadcast thing and StackBlitz just collapses on me. All right. Okay, I'll kill that. Awesome. I'll send this one in a little bit, but it's not needed for now. Okay, so the way I'll do it is I'll probably just switch to different local project. Let's save that. Alright, so here's our component store. And this is our effect. So we'll copy this code off the effect. But in the meantime, we'll see where it was used. Well, it was used in a lot of open editors. Let's see, for example, authors. I would now. Oh, book 6 is fine as well. Let's see. Yeah, so basically we were setting the ID, passing the ID and the book, and then we had this component store, which was a bookstore here. It was get book, right? And then if we go in here, and there's passing ID. So the get book itself, so the set book, get book itself is an effect. And what that does, every time we pass an ID, it turns that ID in observable. So any values that you pass into that, they basically piped into these subject that's underneath it, and then we can control how we flatten or what we do with it anyway. So here we would filter things, and then we will tap and do some updater things, like update status. Then we would switch map into the book service and we do the actual API call. And when that one is successful, we would set the book, which is another updater, so it updates the state. And finally, we would tap with update status of loaded. Okay, so that was the in a nutshell, the effect in a nutshell. So let's try to switch back to our platform here. And there's one improvement that I thought just before starting the stream, as I was looking at the code, how to explain it. Let's see if that improvement actually makes sense, or if it would be better. Okay, so we pasted the effect code. So it's pretty small, right? So let's go over this one. So it creates an effect, and effects, and again, the effect is subscribed. It's subscribed to for the life of the component. That's great. And then it takes this generator function, right? Generator function, and that's the function that. Just open the GitHub because it'll be better. I don't think I need the component store demo. Yeah, that'll be sufficient. do this full screen. Full screen layout. Okay, good. So it should be better. And I'll zoom it in a little bit. So sources. Oh, one more thing we need. Okay. Sources. So we would need a few things. So subject is, we can just add it there. We'll get back to this one in 1 second. That's a cool thing we have. Alright. App demo 6. Demo 6 component. So this one was just calling getBook, right, and it was passing the ID to it. So what's the generator function? Let's look at this. Let's get back to the store. All right. I'll zoom it in as well. So this getBook takes this generator function. So it takes the origin, right? The origin is actually something that's being passed to it, observable of this V, right? That's observable of this V, and then it returns us another observable. So all of these that has to pipe and go through here, it has to return observable for us. Awesome. So this is a generator. So this is basically a function that takes an observable, which would be observable of those incoming values, and we pipe it through a bunch of operators, and that way we get result of something. Awesome. Okay, so let's see how it works, how this origin actually appears, and how by us, calling this ID as function and passing like strings here would actually create us this stream of data, this observable. Well, the way it does it is inside it we have an origin, right, and we'll just create a new subject. So we have a way inside to orchestrate any incoming values, and we'll use it within the subject. And then we will call this function, right, the generator one, on this subject, on this origin. So we says retriable. It's not retriable actually. We'll just remove that comment because we will just do simple for now and just won't be retrying anything, or won't be too smart about it. Basically, if error happens, it happens. All right, so it's generator. We pass in this origin. And then what we do, we would pipe it, take until, destroy. Why was it needed? So it's tied to the lifecycle component, this effect. If effect, or actually ComponentStore, is destroyed, then we'll clean it up. And we subscribe. So this one basically always works, and unsubscribes basically on this destroy. Right. So the origin is there, and then what we return is interesting. We return back a function which takes a value or an observable and returns, well, a subscription there in this case. So this effect, what we call, right, this effect, the getBook itself is actually a function, right? And we know it because when we call this function with ID, this is when we push this observable or a value. In this case, ID is a value. We push in there, and it just goes though. So the first thing we do is we're trying to understand when this getBook is called, for example, this book component, with string here. We're trying to evaluate, do we have an observable that's incoming, or do we have a regular value, like in this case book ID is just a simple value. We do also have I think also in this example, let me double check. Oh, that was for the updater. But anyhow, we have an example also like here, right? When this is updater, but the effect will be similar, where we have a value that we call it with, and it's an observable. All right, so if it's a value, or if it's basically an observable actually, we'll just return observable as it is, because this is an observable that we got there. Or, you know, if it's a value, we'll just wrap it with the of, right? So the of is an observable operator that wraps it and basically turns it into observable with a single value that would complete. It's a synchronous observable. Oops. Okay. Great. So now we have this observable. We'll pipe it. We'll also take until, destroy, right? So why do we need this? In case it wasn't a value, it wasn't a single value that was passed into it, but if observable was passed into this effect, we would need to still destroy that observable, because it could be the infinite one. And what's cool about it, by the way, is that we can call this effect demo 8 with observables. I think it's this one I have. With multiple observables, each one would be pushing its different values. For example, in this case, like here, update title, you know, we had like apples titles, and update title like oranges titles. Both of them are observable, and basically those are infinite ones that were pushing apples, oranges values. All right, and because we return a subscription back, we can unsubscribe what we want to. For example, here bananas was pushing in here the new values. Yeah. Update title. Yeah. But we have a subscription, you know, when we call it, we can, you know, assign a subscription to it. And then when we want to, we can just call unsubscribe for that particular one. And the rest of the effects will still be pushing new values into it. Into this effect. However, one of those observables we can stop if we want to. Anyhow, so we subscribe to them internally, and then we would just push this to the origin. So this is how the values, every time they're called, they're basically next pushed into the subject. All right? And that subject is what's passed to that generator function. So its effect in itself is very, very simple. But in my mind, it is very, very important part of any state management. And frequently when people are creating a subject, you know, service with a subject, this is the one that's gets overlooked all the time. Effects not implemented, and typically things are like, even if it's a proper push-based approach. Push-based approach is a push-based subject that keeps, you know, its state in a behavior subject or some kind of subject, and you know, and you consume it by reading the values out of it. But pushing the values into it is typically done in a way where it's a function that calls maybe a HTTP request or whatever, and the result of that is pushed into that subject. And the problem with that approach is that you typically, you know, oversee those race conditions. So if that method on that service is called many times at the same time, for example, it's attached to the click event or something, and somebody's clicking, like, you know, very impatiently, that would trigger multiple requests. And then we have no way of controlling that in a typical subject with the, you know, service with the subject approach. So having an effect is super important, and this is exactly where you control all those flattening strategies, because otherwise it's basically like a merge map, right? Every method indication will trigger this. However, same as here, right? Every, you know, update title trigger this. Every page count will trigger this. But then inside, if it's an effect, I can control it to have an effect here. Let's see. Yes, like the get book. I can control it, and all the incoming, in this case, IDs, I turn them into the observable because they all pushed with the next value, right? And now I can really control how we handle the new incoming value while we're still dealing with the previous one. And here I wanted to do the switch map. I want to drop the old one if I had it, because I have a new ID all of a sudden. Maybe user navigated to a different route, and Angular is trying to preserve that component and just changing, the ID on it and all that stuff. Basically, a switch map is what I decided to go with here. It was making sense, basically. All right, so this is one of the most important part of the effect, and this is why it's a crucial part of a component store. Awesome. Okay, so it looks fairly straightforward, right? We have this origin, although here it might look intimidating when you look at this. It might like, oh, whoa, what is going on here? But the implementation itself is super straightforward. Awesome. So we're returning this function that can take a value optionally. Like, really, why was it optionally? Why would we need optionally? Well, sometimes we have basically a fact that just, self-enclosed, and sometimes we just need to trigger it. We would just want to, attach our effect to the lifecycle of the component and not pass any values. That's fine as well. We could start, with the empty callback and do some, interval here, whatever we want to do. So that's why we can skip this value. And what I wanted to do is to be kind of type safe here, right? So if this thing is not passed, okay, to here, right? I wanted to have a return instead of subscription. I wanted to have a void. So I created this return function, and that's an interesting example, by the way. So select, we can override different things, those function, it's called function overloads. Basically say, okay, you give me this arguments, you have this, basically, a return type. You give me something else, you might get something else. And we can do a lot of those overloads. But we cannot really do the overloads on the return type. So, but I wanted to have a way of saying, okay, if you pass me a value or an observable, just do something with this, right? If you're passing me nothing, basically, if this is undefined, don't expect anything. Don't expect this subscription from me. Although I'm looking at it now, maybe it makes sense still. Okay. So basically, you had this interface. When you don't pass anything, it's void. However, you pass some values, you get a subscription back. And I'm looking at it now and thinking, do I need to do this? Because I technically, yes, because we're subscribing to this observable. Okay, so it'll be undefined. Yeah, it still makes sense. So because I need to basically type it differently for two different return types, I created this interface, and we can see how it works. So this is this create function. I removed the generator, right? So let's skip that. I typically, when I investigate the typings, I would open the TypeScript playground. Just zoom it in a little bit. I declare things, declare a function. I don't need the implementation of it. I'm just trying to see how it behaves. And then I'll create a few, basically test cases for myself to see how they'll behave as well. If the types are all correct and if the things works as expected. So for example, here, if I create an effect here, it doesn't matter. I'm skipping the generator. I'm curious about the return, right? And if I'm calling it with nothing, right? Which, I can do that. The type of this would be void, which is exactly what I want, right? So if I'm not passing any arguments, okay, this is void then. So the return type would be void. I don't get the subscription. Basically, the return type of the create effect is the proper one. It would be a callback that returns a void. If I pass, something else, I'm also making sure, so it inferred a string, right? So I know I need to do the string, so 1 would be incorrect, which is great. All right, and same here. But if I'm returning, let me just try that. Hey, that would be the string 1, string 2. So this is correct, and the result would be subscription, right? So if we pass something to it, it gets this type. So we know if we call it with something, we'll get a subscription back. All right, because now we could be passing an observable. We can even go further. If we're passing the value, we cannot get anything, but this subscription, it doesn't really matter because we can, we just wrap it with off, we'll execute it at basically the same time as we pass it. That's fine. However, if we pass an observable, that's where we need the subscription to control this effect that we can unsubscribe from. Awesome. All right, so these all work, and this is how I basically test and work on my types, especially the ones that require more intricate way of dealing with them. All right, so effect return type, I'll add this to the top here. I can say that this is the return type of the effect. I'm not exposing it, I'm not exporting it, so I'm keeping it very internal to this component store. Return type of effect that behaves differently based on whether the argument is passed to callback. Right? So let me format this one. Okay, looks like it's happy. I'm not quite happy with this. I think it should be this way, but yeah, I think this looks better. Awesome. So we have this observable. Okay, great. And we explain this effect return function. Great. One thing, was there one thing? There was no thing. Yeah. The return type here I put unknown by default, and that's fine because we would basically not be using it anyway, right? So we don't really care what this one returns to us as long as it's observable. So we don't know what it returned and we don't care, right? So we don't access it anyway. So we'll just say this would return us this one, actually this one would return us unknown. We don't really need it or care about this. This V pushed it here. We need it here because we are doing the return type, and we would infer it from here. So there are a few ways to set this type. Either to type it here, which would probably be a preferred way, or we can just, you know, pass the type here as well. Yeah, I probably would recommend to type it here, right? You just say observable of whatever it is, string. This might make this line a bit longer, and sometimes maybe you'll push this line on and push this on the next line and indent one level further. That's fine. By the way, if anybody has any questions as I go, ask your questions in the chat. I'm watching that as well. I can answer them. Great. So this is an effect. So we now have almost 200 lines of code for this entire thing, and I think it's now in more or less of a complete state. Now we need to add more tests. All right, so last time when I was streaming this, we added, the first time I was doing it, for the first 100 lines of code, we basically added almost 400 lines of tests. Let me just collapse this one. So this is the serialization. Yeah. So then we had a selectors, which added, because we have some typings here. Hey, Brim. So question from Bram is, can we already play around with the component store? Soon. So today is the part 3, which is the final part. So we can, and this will be basically in the full complete version of it, which would have some changes further on, but I think they're more or less stable. Right now, the second one, the selectors, is being reviewed. Actually, Tim reviewed it earlier today as well, and I have like one comment that I need to address. That was a part 2. So once we get through this review, it'll be there, and this one, I hope I'll get to submit it either later on today after we're done with the stream, if I'm comfortable with all the stuff we have there, or on Monday. I'll send the PR, and then probably a day or two we'll get it reviewed. So hopefully from Wednesday, Thursday, it'll be in the nightlies. Yeah, so soon. Okay. So now we'll need to write some tests for the effects. Okay, let's see. So selectors, okay, so for the first 100 lines of code, I added 400 lines of tests. So then selectors came along, and selectors were, let me see how many we had. Well, again, there's a lot of overrides, but basically from 144 to 180. So what? 144. 190. So it's about like 50 lines of code we added, and for that 50 lines of code, we had another 200 lines of, or 200 lines of tests. So this is fairly, I guess, good ratio here, and we cover all the different cases, right? And right now we're adding another, basically 20, 40, 20, 30, no, together with comments, 30 lines. So, and we'll have interesting cases as well. So let's just think of what the cases for the effects will need. So first of all, we'll collapse this one quickly. So we'll describe effects, right? And then we'll see what we need for that. So for the effects, we'll need the following tests. Just do this quickly so I can copy paste this. Yeah, quite excited about this. There's a lot of excitement internally at Google as well about this. People are waiting for it to be part of NgRx so they can use it. We have a component store internally at Firebase console already for a while, but that's basically close to the Firebase console, and it's not as feature rich as the one that we have right now, pushing basically upstream to NgRx, and it's also not as performant as what we have right now. Okay, so for the effects, so let's see selectors. What was this? Initialize component store does not emit values. All right, so let's see this one. How we would be testing this. So we'll need to probably have a mock of this observable so we can check what it's done here, right? Or basically, yes, that's what we probably need, right? So we'll need to listen for any things that are being pushed there, because we're not testing how this observer behaves, but we're just testing the values that we get here. Okay, yeah, that seems reasonable. So we have an observable, so we'll probably use marbles for this, and then we'll have a value that's pushed in, maybe a few values that's pushed in, and we'll see. I will test them through marbles as well. I will also test a subscription that we can unsubscribe from this. Right. So, for example, okay, so first one will be effects. Effect or run or run when value is provided. Okay, so that's one when the value is provided. We'll also need to thinking about how would we simulate some of the race conditions here. So for example, if I have another, I don't think I need to really simulate that, as long as I can see that the values are coming in, right? So yeah, we're fine there. So when the values are provided, when the observable is provided, that's good. Our effects are unsubscribed, right? or effects could be on. Actually, it's not the effect. Let's run. And then okay, so effect could be unsubscribed from, right? Unsubscribed from with returned subscription. Okay, so we have that, and if we have here, we can also do, so because what we're going to try is if I subscribe with multiple observables and I'm unsubscribing with a particular one, so I had that cancel observable here before and cancels the correct one. So this will be nice. Could be unsubscribed from the multiple, could be unsubscribed. Effects could be unsubscribed. Observable is provided, so let's see how long is that when multiple could be run with multiple observables. Okay, so there's multiple, and could be unsubscribed from the specific observable. I'll probably do observables with capital O, so it'll be better. So again, naming things is always hard, and even specifying the test case names. Could be unsubscribed from a specific observable when multiple are provided. Okay, so there's a few tests here. Okay, so we're testing. All right, that. Awesome. Is run when the value is provided. Is run when the observable is provided. Is run with multiple observables provided. Could be unsubscribed with the return subscription. Could be unsubscribed for specific observable. Multiple are provided. Great. All right. So before we'll set this up. Probably I'll just copy the thing that we have set up before, because we don't really care how it is set up as long as it is set up. Now, effects, do we care if the component store is initialized or not before we run them? No, we don't care. They can run. Moreover, they could be the ones to be triggered that they would initialize the store. Okay, so we don't care about that. Great. So we don't care about initialization. So it could be already initialized. Doesn't matter. Actually, it could be not initialized. Doesn't even matter. We can just create it without any state. Yeah, it's not even tied to the state. We just need a component store of anything. So we will have an effect. We'll be running the effect without any state. I'll just do this will be. I'll just provide this. Do we have a default one? instance object. We'll probably want to have something there, so people by accident not specify nothing, but I can just do object myself. Alright, so I'll have the object here as well. So it's something. And I will remove this in its state. So we don't really need anything there, we just need it. We just need the component store to be created. And that's pretty much it. Oh, we also need one more. So complete. So we can do the same thing. So effect is complete. Is complete. Completed when component store when component store is destroyed. Okay, that one's good as well. We basically need to make sure that our effect unsubscribes when ngDestroy is called. All right. I might come up with more test cases as we go, but those are a few that are interesting ones. Okay, so when the value is run when the value is provided. Great. So how would we test this? So I'll use marbles again. And now I need to do inspect. Let me just try to see if that works. So no, use. And again, I'm still not very comfortable with these NgRx marble and jest library, so I'm still learning it as we go. So I'll need marbles. Okay, great. So now I'll need to create the effect. So ComponentStore, effect. All right. And I'll need to type it. I can be just passing strings. So I'll have the what was it? Origin? I think I called it origin. I'll just reuse the same name. Yeah, origin. Okay, let's see, origin. And do I need to type this one? Just so the unknown. And here we are trying to see how we can do that. So we need to try to capture this effect and origin values. One way to do it is to basically push them into an array, right? And then, once we run the test, it'll be all there. That's probably not what I want to do. So this is basically a function. Let me just see how jest mocks functions. Just okay, there we go. It looks like I already checked that out before. Okay, great. Suggest function. Callback, okay, and then this results calls to be, okay, so this is calls. Every time this is called, this will be called once. And expect, okay, so let me just try to see what would be, so origin, okay. Maybe some time to experiment with this. I'll call it mock. Just function. It just takes the origin, and I'm not going to be doing anything with it really. I'll return it back. But I need to capture it, so I'll use it this way. And now I can just call actually assign this, so I can call it multiple times. So I'll call it with effect. I'll call it value1, and I'll call it value2. So now I am expect this mock generator calls results calls should be calls 1. Let's see, mock. Okay, great. It actually knows. Calls instances or results. The first argument of the first call of the function to be 0. The first argument of the first call. Okay. So I actually only expect it to be called once. Calls 0. So this will be now giving me any, okay, to be, okay, calls the first argument of the first call function to be 0. The first call, okay, good. So I think I need to actually do it twice because I need to say, I need to specify which arguments, or I have to provide an array. It's okay, so I'll just do that as well. Great, to be observable. And this one, origin, so this would be hot. So now I need to show that these two values were invoked. Okay. So let's do 1, 2. They will basically be done at the same time, where 1 is value 1 and 2 is value 2. All right, so now we're confirming that this will be that. Let me just try to run just see if that actually works. It's a lot. Just run test by path. Okay, good. Right. Don't need any of the coverage stuff. I'll just run the spec. Don't need to run everything. I just need to run the specific tests and see if it works. It should. This will be very much the same as just pushing the values to the array here. The way why I do it here is because when we pass observable, we really need to do it this way, because our effects won't be just simple values. We'll be providing basically observables that we can control, and we want to make sure that things are going the right way, basically. Alright, so and something failed. It says that we got array and received nothing. Why did we receive nothing? Oh. Is it the same flush? So sometimes we need to flush the values before we can control them. Let's see if that's the case here as well. Oh, it's the same thing here. Which is interesting. So these values are pushed into this. So okay, let's just see what this one does. So this one wraps it. It just says any. Okay. What does it provide us with? Received. This is array of nothing. What is array? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So when we have this effect, this should already give us something. This is strange. Okay. Let's just try to quickly do something else. That should actually be working. But we can do quickly something else just to see how it works out, maybe a little bit differently. So I do the origin, I'll do the pipe, I'll do the tap, and I'll post results. This will be a string array results. We'll do the value. We'll just push it to this results array. Oh, no, that's obviously the type. I'll just initialize it to empty array. And we'll just push this results into we'll just push the value to the results array. Okay, so it says tap's not going to be there. Let's load tap as well. Okay, so we have that. Something like this one is unknown. Yeah, it is unknown because origin will let origin know that it's an observable of string. observable is, so let's help that as well. Okay, so we have this. So we'll push those two, flush it as well. No, we don't need to do the M expect. We'll just we don't even need to flush it, but okay, let's just, actually we had to flush it a few times here. Okay. So we'll flush it. We probably don't need to try it as well. But we'll expect results. Results to equal. Because it's an array, we need to do the equal, not to be. To be would be by reference. Let's just do this, okay, value 1 and then value 2. So this should pass. But I'd rather really do it this way. Okay, let's running it. Alright, so everything's passing now. It might not need the flush. Just quickly run this one. But why does it? Alright. We're not checking the calls here. Yeah, I don't need the flash. I'd really like to capture this one instead. How would I capture this one instead? So this would be the observable. Why was it empty? Alright, so this one doesn't even need marbles, to be honest. Alright, it just can be a regular function. I'll just copy this one. Because I don't need it in the next run. And I'll be trying to figure out how to make it work with observables. Okay. So we don't need this. We don't need this. So let's do it here now. The observables provided. So this is where the fun part begins. Okay, so generator, we declared, okay, yeah, just comment that one out. In fact, don't need this one. Thank you. So now instead of having the effect here, I'll just do the, now we need to do the cold. So we'll have a cold observable, meaning it needs to be, subscribed to. It's not emitting any values as it is. it'll start emitting when it's there. So I'll just do A, B, C, something like that. Complete this wall. So results don't matter. So this will be hot though, because when this origin will never complete it until it's there. So this will be ABC hot, basically ABC. It's not completing. Basically shows hot or something. We'll try to align this for now, but it doesn't matter. See, it's there. Okay, and we don't need any of that stuff because it's just simple values. I don't really hope this works. So we're now running this effect and just providing a single observable. Here we were providing values, right? We're providing string 2, so it's twice, it's called twice. Okay. Did it work? Yeah, it did. Alright, so it does work. Why wasn't it working there? I just made an error, so I'll see it'll be off by 1 for this one. Just make sure it's actually, running. Yeah, obviously. Okay, but let's see. So it says the frame is different. So it's running. Why wasn't it running in that case? So it works with observables, but it doesn't work if I just pass the value in. Why? Maybe because maybe it has to do something with test schedules and stuff like that. Alright, yes. So we have this effect that we pass, alright, and it works, and we have a hot observable back. Great. And the next one is when we pass multiple. I'm really unhappy. I think it should be working. Alright. So if I pass it's called observable is different than value. Okay. I'll get back to it in some free time. So now we'll do a different thing. We'll do ABC, and then we'll have some fun here. This will be hot, this doesn't matter. Let's align them. So this would be D, and then that'll be an interesting one. I'll pass one value at exactly the same time as this one, and they both right? D, yeah, I'll do just later. So we'll basically see how it behaves when different values are there, but then we'll see if we have a same value in exactly the same time frame. Because we subscribe to both, we should probably get the combination of them at the same time frame in their result here. So okay, so let's see A, then we'll have a D, then B, then we'll have a C, E. I'll just push this one by 1, so it's like clear. It's F here. Okay. So now basically we're combining the values from all of them, right? They're passed different times, but we do get the results from both. And nothing is ignored basically at this point. Let's see if it works. So this one works now. Should have done just expect there. All right, awesome. So it works. So this in Marvel syntaxes, when we surround things with parentheses, means these are happening at exactly the same time. And because in effect we cannot really drop any values, and those race conditions happen, right? It just gets this both values in this order, and then in the observable itself we can figure out how we can deal with this. Awesome. All right, so this one works great. All right, so can be unsubscribed with a return subscription. So this one is interesting. Here we'll be using the fake time things. We already had a test similar to this. We were unsubscribing from updaters. And here I wrapped it because I used the just fake timers. Sure. And then I use the fake schedulers there. Sure, I can probably do. I can adjust these, unsubscribe and subscribe. I'll do a similar thing. So I'll do cancels updater observable when there be cancels effect observable. So I'll now push these two in there. Alright, so it already knows that could be unsubscribed. Alright, so let's see what I named it there. So I have a consistent naming within the class. Cancels the correct one by unsubscribing with the return subscriber. Yeah, that makes sense. So cancels effect observable. Could get subscribed with the return subscription. Kind of saying by unsubscribing with the return subscriber or return subscription actually. Subscription. Yeah. We'll use similar to this test. We'll use fake schedulers, and we'll have this advanced that we're passing into it, and then we can advance the time basically manually. Great. And here I was providing that way. Okay, because I need. Yes, let's do it this way. I'll try to do something else first, and then we'll see how that goes as well. Okay, so this one we'll do the fake schedulers. So the fake schedulers. Alright, we'll advance this down so it goes to 8 as well. Looks correct. It's correct for now. Great, so fake we already have the component store here, so we'll just need an effect like this. We can't use the marbles with fake time. Yeah, because fake time. Yes, and I even asked, you can combine the two. Alright, so I'll have to use like a raw observables, which is fine. So I'll have another one like here, for example, right? I was using the interval and I was passing it to the updater. I'll copy this because it'll be very similar. And we'll go over it. So first of all, I'll need to create an effect. And this effect will just be also like a pass through except for markup generation. Actually, you know, just to make it a little bit different on the actually map it. Now I'm thinking I need to capture this origin as well, so I'll need to have a mock generator and I'll need to have this effect as well. Right, I do need that. So I have this effect now, right, which I'll be subscribing to. But I'll also need to advance the time, and I cannot use the mExpect. Let me just get back to this RxJS source. Just examples. That changed, right? Oh, this is the source, yes, sorry. Actually, let's just look at the source as well. Maybe there's something to it. So this index, what do we have? Big configure, this is cases, marbles. Come from cases, okay, good. This fake. Yeah, so this is the fake schedulers, which I have as advanced things. I can pass. And it returns this fake for fake schedulers, okay? Alright, so I just renamed them, okay, good. And fake test is this, okay, good. So it's just a name for this callback. And the advances the argument that we basically also pass in here. And I will call the test with this milliseconds. Great. So let me see what we wrap it with. So it's in the source, in the fake. Here's this fake. Just takes this fake test, right? Looks at the schedulers. Alright, so it's mostly dealing with the scheduling stuff, okay. And then calls that? What's the arcs? Yeah, basically whatever the arcs are there as well. Okay. So let's just do it this way then. Yes, okay. This would be an interesting one. Since I need to validate observable to be, and I can't really use then the fixed schedulers to advance the time because I need to get access to the marbles. And the way I worked around there is, I was pushing to the results. Yeah, I mean, that's one way of doing things, right? Because I just do the results, right? Okay. So we're basically not really interested in the coordination between these observables as long as the results are there. So here we made sure that, oh, hold on, where? Here. Here we made sure that effects run and push the values are at the same time, right? So here, when we cancel it, we're not really interested about the timings when those things are pushed as long as they're there. Okay, yeah, let's do it this cheating way a little bit. So we'll have the results as well, similar as we had the first one. I'm not quite happy about this. I might need to discuss a better way to do it. I mean, it definitely works, and it definitely does what's expected of it. Origin, interval, what's more, what do I miss? What does it not like? Yes, what I'm pushing to it doesn't like it. Because right now it says effect. It wants to to origin and the result. So here I was remapping the value. Okay. Here there's the interval. Yeah. So this would be not the effect itself. The effect itself we already have it, and we would have the effect, and then we'll have a subscription. Alright, so we'll have this observable const observable that would be meeting the values, and this is just timer. Just does the string, turns the string, right? So turns this value from 0 to 10, well, every 10 seconds, every 10 milliseconds. I'll just take 10 that's just in case, but we obviously won't need them because we'll stop them sooner. Okay, so we already called the effect here, so we have this effect, we have this, and now we just pass this observable in there. Great. Doesn't look like. Oh, yeah, because I'm doing the object here. No, I don't need the object. I'll just do the string. I don't really need to do the string as well, but it's fine. This extra. Yeah, go. Good. Parentheses are good. Semicolons inserted. I mean, I could have just put this interval there as well, it's fine. Okay, just make it a little bit more clear. So then I advance the time by 40 milliseconds. By 40 fake milliseconds. So in theory, it should give us just 4 values, right? Because we are emitting every 10 milliseconds. So should capture, this is very similar comment, so should capture from 0 to 3, and then it will kill the subscription and also subscribe from this particular one. All right. Actually, it might be a good idea to have it better. Okay, that's fine. We'll just do this. And then I advance the time for 20 seconds more just in case, just to make sure that nothing extra is captured there. And at this point, we can look at the results, and we'll the results. Let me just do this way. Oops. So we'll expect results to equal. So by this point, we should have 0, 1, 2, and 3, and we won't have anything else. So we capture this. Great. So we just make sure that the first 40 seconds that we do things work, and when subscribe, we don't get anything after that. This is our results. That kind of works. Okay. Where's this one closing? Fix schedulers. Great. Let's see if this works. The next one will be also similar to what we did with the updater. It would be, and now we'll have 2 of the observables, right? And we'll cancel one of them, and that the second one will be still emitting values. So let's quickly go and copy that code as well. So basically, this will be very similar. This one, it maps the values. Okay, so we'll just have this values. We'll have another one. And we'll just copy all of this, actually. This will be very similar. Here. Alright, so this one's still running. Okay, now ran, it now passes. Great. All the way to the bottom. So, could be unsubscribed from a specific observable, multiple are provided. And we'll use this fake time thingy of X schedulers. Great. So we'll have the same way, record all the things. State. Just the object doesn't really matter too much here. Or actually, I'll just do it, not even an object, I'll just do, since we're recording value in this, that would be missing as well. Just have an array. So, by the way, I could write it this way, right? Value string, right? And an array. That kind of works. But generally, within Google style guide, we prefer, as long as it's no longer primitive, if it's no longer an array of primitives, we'll just push it to this notation, basically array as a type, and this is like a generic fit. Okay, so we won't be subscribing. Oops. We won't be subscribing to anything. Just make sure we don't. Okay. Won't be subscribing. Did I actually need the mock generator? I didn't need the mock generator here as well. I'll have it there. Sure. Okay, I have it there. This time I'm going to need it there. Actually, I don't need it here as well. Why would I use something? I'll put something that I don't use. Mock generator done. Effect itself here. Great. And we'll have a very similar one. Oh, that's so ugly. I will have 2 effects now. No, we'll have one effect, right? The effect is the same, just observables are different. Great. So we'll have it here, and we'll be pushing this value. So it's not actually a string anymore. It'll be this type, basically value of string. Okay, great. We won't need the updater, so it'll be effect instead, right? So this is our effect that we just created, and we'll have a second effect as well, and we'll be canceling the first one. Oops. Why are we not canceling the second one? Well, just to make sure that when we call, subscription on things, it's just not taking the last one, I guess. I can cancel it actually in any order. I don't think it really matters for the purpose of test. But yeah, I think that we'll just cancel the first one. So right now it's not update observable. Just comment that out. I'll probably comment this one. Has the first observable to the effect. Create. Second observable that. So it updates the state, but then this is values to effect. So now effectively we have two observables. One is the interval of 10 that maps to the value of A and the value, and second one is does the same thing except for the B. So this one's A value, A0, A1, A2. This one's B0, B1, B2. It starts 15 seconds late, milliseconds later, but with the same interval. And take 10 just to make sure we have enough time for this test. Okay, good. So we'll do exactly the same advanced 40 and then advanced 30 more. So we have 30 more, which should be there. Great. Values A1, second observer continues to emit values. Yep. So it's the same comment. It's the same kind of type of test. Great. All right, let's run this one too. So it's completed. I'll probably push this test. Which one was the effect? Alright, so this is 1, 2. Let me just cancel. So it cancels effect observable. Yeah, I can probably push this one here too. The cancels when component stores this one. Okay, good. Sounds about right. Alright, so this test also passed. Sometimes I just want to, oh, now it passed. When everything starts passing, sometimes I want to make sure that it still tests things and just add peak 6 here, just to make sure it fails, because otherwise it's that gets suspicious when everything's passing. Sometimes everything could be passing and you realize you're working on a whole different part of code at all, like a different branch and stuff. Alright. So let's just, this one's done with a done. Okay. Yeah, That's one way to do it. So we'll do the same thing. We'll just do the done function, and we'll call the destroy, and this will be dead. Yeah, I can do that. Alright, yeah, that's good. So, yeah, awesome. So that test failed in the meantime. Let's remove this one. So we'll use a more or less standard way to run asynchronous tests with passing a done function, done callback, and it will be called however observable. Yeah, that's what we want. Just to make sure. Oh, observable. Okay, so we'll have observable. That would transform into so let's see, let me think how we do it. Because it's not exactly the same way. I might be better off. Let's see what Marvel's prop. Yeah, definitely. Just copy this one. So why just done function might not work? Actually, done can work as well, right? Done can work. And the way we'll do it is, yeah, okay, I'll just leave it with done. Because it'll be easier, I guess it's the same way. So we'll have a component store, we don't really need it. So we'll have our, so we'll have our fact, that create a fact, right? And we don't care what's passed into it. We actually do care. We need it. So this would be origin. But here we'll do this way. Origin. We can do finally. Yes. I can do tab since we already have tab open. So tab, we don't really need the values since we won't be pushing any values. However, tab takes observer, right? Tab takes next error complete. Great. I think they'll change that as well. So it can take the complete. So this is what we'll do. We'll pass this object. So this is an observer. We'll pass tap an observer that does completion. On completion, it'll be saying, okay, I'm done. All right. So this is this. This is our fact. We can put even the interval into it. That emits something 10 seconds. Doesn't matter as long as it's something that triggers it. Actually, it does matter because we can. Alright. Yeah, we'll just do the interval. Okay, great. So this one completes and storage destroyed. So this one will check that the origin completes. And we also need to make sure that this one completes, so there'll be a second or separate one. So now instead of store, so we don't need to subscribe here. We don't do any of that. Great. So now we are checking that it completes, the origin completes, right, when component store is destroyed. So this, we have an observable here, doesn't matter. We make sure that the origin stops producing any further values when the component store is destroyed. It means that, you know, it avoids those memory leaks. Great. Let's see if this works. In the meantime, we should also add another test. See, this is a cool part of it. As we go, you know, we're coming up with more of test cases. So, test. You can say, argument that was passed completes. Alright, so this is the different one. Let me get this one still running. Okay, so now here we do origin, we don't care. However, we will do here now. Oh, failed, okay, why did it fail? Timeout. So now it's interesting because it says if it completes. Okay, let me just do quickly the other one as well. So origin, do nothing. That should complete as well. Alright, let's just do this one quickly. This one's not done yet. So now this is the same as it was. But this is the observable that would pass to it as well. This should complete type tap. Complete done function. Good. Oh, this is tap, this is complete, this is a function call. So this one also should complete. Yeah, so this is the observable that would pass into, and why is it happening? Well, the observable that would pass into here is still taken till this destroy, and this destroy, and so you can see clearly here, both the origin of generator return function, so they both fail. Okay. Interesting why they both fail. Because they never had a chance to run? Is that what it is? and because they never had a chance to run. Let me just do this set timeout to do this call in 10 seconds, 20. Since it's asynchronous test, it doesn't matter. I can do this. Let's just do this in both. So it looks like both cases failed. But when we know that they should execute it, maybe because it completes even before it gets a chance to run, but it should still subscribe to them, right? But okay, but I see what the problem. Interval, it would work on the next tick, so it doesn't even have a chance to emit anything. Okay, yeah, let's do this way. Yes, so it basically maybe finalize would work, because now this finalize should trigger regardless. But okay, it doesn't really matter. Tap would be fine as well. So now we're setting them out. We're delaying the destroy by 20 milliseconds, which is fine. Maybe not too fine actually, because I'd rather do it for the fake time than how do I do it done with fake time? I would have done fake time at the same time. This is just this is Ox Marble. Can I do down and fake time at the same time? Using cases. Test scheduler. So I think do some of the configure and models from here. Okay. This is okay. So they still fail. That's interesting. Why would they both fail? This time obviously callback was unlocked within 5 seconds. That shouldn't happen. So all organic completes and starts destroying. Should push this one here. Not a big deal, but mess it a little bit better. So why would they both fail? Fixed schedulers, okay. So this all right. Don't quite understand why would it not run. So it does run. Let's just do one thing. So just finalize. But it should already trigger. So finalize. Let's see what this one does. Returns observable. There is a source observable. Would call specific function with it. So terminates or complete an error. So let's just do this, although it should in theory do the exact same thing. Done. Alright, let's just do for one. Otherwise, and then the callback. Closing the pipe, and it's closing the effect argument that's being passed. Let's see if this works. And this one, I might not even need to set the timeout. Also, I see, yes, that's right. Can't really do it here because I'm in the effect territory there. I see. Oops. I need to advance the time. Basically because with it cancels, I'm using this use fake timers. Can't really do. I see. Yes, that's why time never actually goes anywhere. See how this is done. Use fake timers. So I need to push the just a little bit further. I guess that timer. Run all timers. We'll run timers. Run on pending timers. Would that work? Fast forward. When you can advance things, that's fine. Just advance them and do that. So it didn't finalize here, but the advanced tab with this one never just never. What's good about it is the interval is infinite observable, right? So it shouldn't never complete unless it's told to. So by having finalized there, or even tapped with the done callback, it forces it to, it basically shows us that this thing was completed regardless. And if we'll just have one failing test right now, that would prove that this basically works. And the reason it's still, yes. Okay, yeah, so we only have one now. Great. So then I don't really need 100, I just need 20 to be honest, so this is fake time, that's fine as well. Because time was never passing before. And also some of the interesting side effects of sometimes nesting
tests, but then other describes what. I didn't realize we had a fake timers. That's actually good because we're not if we look at the test time, the one that I completed, observable argument completes when stores. It took 3 milliseconds, right? So if we were not using the fake timers, it would have actually, waited for 20 milliseconds, which is, 7 times longer, almost 7 times longer than the set time, the timer that was set. And although it feels like, who cares if 20 milliseconds or 3 milliseconds, when you add more and more tests, it starts to matter. It just delays everything longer and longer. Alright, did I run this one? It completes. So this one didn't run. Ran wrong. Okay, let me just check. I don't remember if I ran it or not. So finalize is really good. This tab complete should also work. Let me see. Tab. Yeah, so it takes the observer, which is a partial observer, so I can pass. Partial observer is basically next, error, or completion observer, and completion is basically a complete callback, which is what we are using here. Alright, this still fails. Let me just do this finalize thing there as well. Although tap should work, so I don't see the reason why it won't. Let's just do this finalize, because that basically guarantees us. Tap executes when interval executes, right? When the interval emits the value. But finalize is called regardless when this observable is complete or error, right? Returns observable that mirrors the source observable. They will call a specific function when source terminates incomplete or error. And now we're waiting for it to complete. Alright, awesome. 30 tests all passed. Great. Great, we have 30 tests all passed. And I think this one covers quite a lot of test cases. So we're testing the pass values into the fact, just to recap it, right? We can pass an observable. We can pass multiple observables, and they're fine with this, and the values are being combined. We can cancel it. Subscription. Okay. Yep. Give us subscribed from a specific observable. Multiple are provided, right? So the one we have multiple, you can still subscribe with a particular one. Completes when ComponentStore is destroyed, and the observable argument that's passed into it also completes when the store is destroyed. Awesome. So we have almost 100 lines of code tests. We have almost 200 lines of code with a lot of comments and and stuff. So again, we're almost having that ratio throughout here, 1 to 4, which is basically code under test and the tests themselves, which is good. So we test a lot of things in here. One more thing we should also test, looking past the undefined as the value, that's fine. This undefined is still a value, so we can do when the value is provided. That's a good one, actually. So let's just do this, yeah. When undefined value is provided. Okay, so we'll just do a little bit differently. We would here push and you need the value. Oh yeah, we can actually do this. That'll be cool. Type of v, which should give us so we'll get this undefined, this sort of string. This is interesting. Undefined, and we can pass undefined. Undefined, I can call it just like that as well. Push again. Oh, this is still string. Yeah, that's right. This is still string. Results push. Yeah, that's right. So the results are still string, and this would give us undefined. Awesome. Yeah, so this is also important that we can just pass undefined there. Basically, even though we're basically passing nothing or passing undefined, we still invoke this observable that we have here. And that could serve also as just a trigger. Like you can have nothing, you can completely ignore this origin and pipe off whatever you want, or just create your own observable. It's fine as well. Alright, so we have that. We have observable. We have multiple observables provided. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I don't think I have any tests here missing for this particular. This is a unit test. So what else? Yes, awesome. Everything is working. Great. So what else am I missing for it to be, or what other things need to be submitted for the component store? Well, I think we're covering well with unit tests. I'd like to add some of the integration tests where I'm using the component store within Angular component itself, and basically try that, right? Just to make sure that it works, and all of that. That will also ensure, because we're not tying ng on destroy here, so we're not using the interface in our component store. We're not using it because that would be the only thing that ties us to the Angular, and I mean, right now we're just making this component store framework agnostic, so it won't depend on it would only depend on Direct.js, which is great. However, we're kind of relying that Angular is looking for this NgRx thing here. And even though we're not implementing the interface, right, we're still sort of relying on that. And I want to make sure that should, Angular team decide that, hey, if you're not implementing this interface, then maybe, don't call it. Or maybe there could be many other different ways of dealing with this. I want to make sure that we'll catch that in our tests as well. So that's one of the things. Yeah. So I'll need to add those tests, but those tests won't be a blocker basically for releasing this component store. We also need better documentation of this. This is something that in the previous time I was a little bit lacking on. For example, selectors didn't get any other documentation. So I started with the introduction and some of the installation stuff, but that needs to be done for sure. So it needs a lot better documentation for it. And I actually think that documentation is better written when you are actually writing the unit tests and the code itself, because this is very fresh in your mind how you see it be used, right? We can kind of skip it for now, especially I see that Angular Angular just had their first Angular 10 version. They just had their release candidate 0 thing. So I assume historically the team was, well, can't say historically there. I'd assume the version 10 of Angular would be released anywhere from within a month to 2 months, and I want to make sure that the component store is ready to be officially sort of announced and released with NgRx version 10, which typically tries to follow Angular's version release within a few months or so, or actually sometimes we were like a few weeks. But and then again, yeah. So that would be needed to do that. So basically, higher level tests and a better documentation of it. Also, we need to work on some of the use cases, right? So even though in the documentation, in the design doc, we covered which use cases we want to cover with the component store, I think there are actually more use cases that this component store could be used for. And I already had questions like, hey, what if we provide the component store in root? Or what if we provide a specific component store in root? For example, almost like a feature store. And those are good questions that would need to be looked into in more details. Yeah. For now, I think that would be it. Once the component store with once the effect is submitted, I'll probably announce on Twitter that hey, now you can play around with the version from basically nightly or daily, whatever we have those builds, and that'll be interesting to play with and see how you see some of the feedback that you provide. on that note, I think it would be done for today. Oh, is there a link to working stack blitz? So there is a link to a working stack blitz. However, that's not exactly the same version as I have here. Let's just try to find. So the stack blitz wasn't nice to me here. When I load this, it for some reason it just collapses. When I do the streaming and all that. There's a GitHub component store demo, which I'll paste here. Okay. It's not exactly the same version as the one that I'm submitting, but it's very close. It's missing, I think it's missing the lazy initialization there. And I think updater is not as good typed as I have it here now. Yeah, so those are a few things, but for the most part, it's close enough. It's close enough. I can push this code there as well, update this one, but I don't have any use cases. I think where but I would use lazy initialization and stuff like that, which is, I think, a great feature. Yeah, so the GitHub, boom, yeah, stack blitz and everything else at the same time, just killing my laptop. Awesome. So yeah, that would be it for tonight. If you have any questions, find me on Twitter. Thanks, Ram, sure, for being here with me for the entire session today. All right, thanks. See you. Bye.